She called the cops on my electric fence, but I don't even live in her neighborhood. You ever have one of those days where you're just trying to enjoy a peaceful afternoon sandwich, and suddenly you're the villain in someone else's wild imagination? That was me. Half a sandwich in hand, dog at my side, staring down two sheriff's deputies with flashing lights, and a bullhorn telling me to step away from the weaponized perimeter. My name's Dean, and I live just outside of Midland County, Texas. 10 acres of quiet pasture, a few cows, a pair of stubborn goats, and my dog Turbo, who thinks he owns the place. No neighbors for a quarter mile. No HOA. Just land, sky, and peace. Until Denise showed up. I didn't know her name at first. All I saw was a woman in oversized sunglasses and leopard print windbreaker standing behind the cop cars, pointing at my property like she'd just discovered a terrorist training camp. The officers were confused, polite even. One of them asked if I'd installed a high-voltage child trap. I blinked. You mean my electric cow fence? Apparently, Denise had driven by on a public road a good 800 feet from my land, saw my livestock fencing, and assumed I was trying to fry neighborhood kids. She didn't live nearby. Her house was tucked inside a gated subdivision across a strip of woods. But in her mind, her HOA's reach extended as far as her binoculars could see. She called 911. That's when the saga began. And if you're thinking this story ends with a misunderstanding and a chuckle, nope. This woman went full villain origin story. It started small. Letters, signs, surveillance. 3 days later, I found an HOA-stamped letter taped to my gate. It said I was endangering community safety and demanded I dismantle the fence. I laughed. Showed it to my friend Will at the county office. He spit coffee through his nose. She doesn't have jurisdiction out here, he said. She barely has it inside her HOA. But Denise wasn't done. She drove by my property twice a day, staring into my trail cams. One morning, she set up a folding chair across the dirt road and announced into a megaphone, "This perimeter has been flagged for review. I installed motion-activated sprinklers." Brenda, one of her followers, got sprayed and dropped her clipboard. I waved from my porch with a lemonade in hand. Harmless pranks, right? Until it stopped being funny. A few days later, Denise touched the fence herself. Just a quick zap, enough to startle livestock. But she screamed like she'd been shot. Her son, Chad, showed up later accusing me of electrocuting his mother. He called my fence an emotional hazard. He filed an insurance claim. It was dismissed in less than 24 hours after I sent in the footage, warning signs and permits. But Denise escalated. She started fabricating documents. She drew maps redrawing neighborhood borders to include my land. She wrote newsletters referring to me as the perimeter provoker, claiming I was waging psychological warfare. Still think this is a misunderstanding? Then came the night she tried to cut the fence. It was just after midnight when my dog growled. I pulled up my camera feed and saw 4 figures in reflective vests. Denise was leading them, bolt cutters in hand, fanny pack bouncing like a cartoon character. I'd prepared for this. That section of fence wasn't live. It was a decoy. I turned on the floodlights. The entire field lit up. A siren blared. One of them tripped. Denise screamed and tried to crawl back to her van. I got the whole thing on video. Her downfall went viral. I called my buddy Jonah at the local news station. Within 2 days, the clip aired. Then it hit the internet. Fence Fury trended on TikTok. Someone made a remix of Denise falling backward into a bush. A local brewery even named a beer after the event. Electric Blonde Ale. HOA leadership eventually released a public apology. Turns out Denise had been kicked off the board months ago. She'd been using HOA funds for her safety patrol van and laminated badges. They issued a cease and desist. A restraining order followed. Denise was banned from approaching my property within 500 feet. Her HOA membership? Terminated. But she didn't stop. She moved. A county over. 3 houses down from my friend Mason. Within a week, she was distributing safety citations for solar lights and wind chimes. When she found out Mason knew me, she allegedly said, "He's part of the rural defiance problem." So I mailed Mason a USB titled, "When It Gets Weird." Here's the thing: Denise didn't just annoy me. She represented something darker, a craving for control that turns neighbors into enemies. She weaponized rules, misused power, and tried to shame anyone who didn't fit her mold of community standards. In any other story, she might have been dismissed as eccentric. But she crossed lines, physically and legally. You might think I handled it with sarcasm and jokes. Sure, I did. But I also stood my ground. So what do you think? When does concern for safety turn into harassment? Is it ever okay to play little games to get even with someone like Denise? Or should we take the high road, even when they crawl through the mud? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I went too far? Or not far enough? Let's talk about what happens when neighborhood boundaries, real and imagined, get crossed.